All right, we're live on both Facebook and we're live on YouTube, I think. You guys comment in the comment section below. Let me know how the audio is, particularly for Facebook. We're kind of rigged it for this broadcast. It's the first time we're going live to both platforms. Next time we do it, we'll have a hard cable over there. Right now, we're relying on Wi-Fi to get our signal to the phone quietly. So we've been hustling for the last 30 minutes trying to get rid of a strange RF interference. But I think it's good now. Let me know. Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Kevin Haggerty. This is the Godlogic Project, where we discuss maintaining a Christian worldview in a post-Christian America. Today, we're going to talk about church security with a face. If you guys follow the Godlogic Project, and I thank you for following the Godlogic Project, Jim Howard, a face you'll recognize. And we got a friend of his from Department of Homeland Security, Kevin Smith, in the studio. But first, the intro music. Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Kevin Haggerty, and this is the Godlogic Project.
Shut up, Kevin.
That's right. I'm Kevin Haggerty. That's Mike Houston telling me to shut up like every week. Glad to have you guys here. I want to introduce you to a couple people that are Kevin Smith is from the Department of Homeland Security. Jim Howard, familiar face, Trinity Security Allies. They are here to talk about church security on the national level and on the local level and how the two can work together. And then we got something very cool that Trinity Security Allies gotten involved with. We're going to give you a little preview of that. But first, let me introduce you to the guys. Kevin, say hello to the Godlogic Project fans.
Well, thanks for having me here.
Both of them.
Yeah, both of them today. Well, I'm one of them, so
that's right. You're a watcher or a listener.
Right. I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I love it. Glad to be here today, and it's an honor to be here with Jim and talk about some of the stuff that we're working on with safety and security of our houses of worship. Perfect.
Thank you. And Jim, a lot of people that watch the show already know you. You've been on a few times, but for folks that are watching for the first time or on Facebook right now with your wife doing a watch party, if I did this right. If not, I'm in trouble. Yeah. Tell them who you are and what you do. Yeah, we're both in trouble.
Yeah, I'm the executive director of Trinity Security Allies, and our ministry is your church's safety. So we go around the country. We help churches set up safety teams, kind of encourage them on the right way, what we consider the right way of doing it, and that is to put God first. It's all about expanding the kingdom of God and then protecting the flock at the same time. So we work real hard on those principles to let people know that there is a right way of doing it, not making yourself a military fortress where nobody can come in and worship, but to bring people in so that they can enjoy the fellowship and then also feel safe at the same time.
All right. Well, while we're on the subject of Trinity Security Allies, let's show the video of the laser shot thing that you guys are doing, and then you can explain what that is, and then we'll get to our very special guest. Guess I should hit play too, right?
My name is Jim Howard. I'm the executive director of Trinity Security Allies. I'm also the lead security person for Generations Christian Church here in Trinity, Florida. We run about a 35-man operation that we provide safety for the church through all the services and the different events that they have. This has been a really big thing for us to partner up with LaserShot and work with them in setting up church safety security scenarios. When we first got LaserShot back a year ago, the thing we liked about it the most was that it was teaching people who have concealed weapons permit and also law enforcement officers, putting them in scenarios that they would never be able to do at a shooting range, but putting them in a live scenario where they would have to make a split decision of whether to shoot or don't shoot. The scenarios that we shot today are based on real life situations. Domestic violence, where the husband comes in and attacks his ex-wife in the church. People trying to steal their children when they don't have custody of those children. These are the type of things that actual safety teams across the United States are going to run into. And of course, we do have the active shooters. And these are things that we have to pay attention to. There have been more and more active shooter situations going on in the United States right now. And so we have to be prepared. Whether it be overseas or in the United States, we have to be ready for what may face us in today's house of worships. My name is Jim Howard. I'm an executive director of Trinity Security Allies, and I train with LaserShot.
Very cool, Jim. Very cool. And that's
Great
something you've been working on for a long time, I know.
Right.
We've talked about it even a few times on the show. But the explain to folks, I've been in that situation. I've had that kind of training, and it's insane how realistic, how intense it is when you're doing it. It's not like a video game. So you really are under a lot of pressure. It's excellent training, and it puts people, even if God forbid, you never get in that situation, or hopefully you never get in that situation, you need to realize how intense of a situation that is.
Well, and what you're talking about, how intense it is, we've taken it to churches where pastors have thought about carrying, and then we've run them through a couple of scenarios, and they said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not ready for this. And it's really good because we've trained with a police department, and we've seen mental mistakes that some of these people have made because you don't know what's happening in front of you. It's like you said, it's not an arcade game. This is very realistic to them. And to have the situations that we've been able to put together is just amazing. We purchased the product about a year and a half ago, but they didn't have any church scenarios.
Right.
So when we went to them and talked to them about it, they were hesitant because there had not been a need. So they were at last year's SHOT Show out in Las Vegas, which is like the Detroit car show for gun manufacturers and sellers and things like that. They were there, and they had a couple of people come up and ask them if they had church scenarios. And they said, no, we don't. And the salesperson that we had dealt with said, I got a group of people that we could talk to. So they contacted us and said, hey, we'd like to send out a crew. Could you put some people together in some churches? And, we'd like to come out and film some scenarios. So their thing was that they wanted to film at least, they were hoping 21, and we got 25 that we did. So awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work. That day that we shot that, I was done. That was the end day, and I'd had enough. So it's just it's great. They turned out fantastic. We're going to be running a few of them at the conference this weekend. We don't want to show everybody all of them because
right.
Then they'll know what's going on. But we're going to have a room set up to where they can go in and actually go through a couple of these and see exactly how it works.
Well, if they want to get more information on this, do they go to your website, your
Sure.
Facebook? What's the best way to do it?
TrinitySecurityAllies.com. They can go there. We also have a Facebook page, Trinity Security Allies, that they can go and find out a whole lot more information on it. We also have a Church Safety Network Facebook page that you have to request to be on. It's a closed group,
right?
Because we do a lot of sharing information as far as what's going on around the country. We get Google alerts every day that tells us of incidents that are happening at churches. And plus, we work with other people across the United States, and we get a lot of information.
Has there been an uptick nationally in church violence?
There's been an uptick in vandalisms. We've seen that a lot more right now. There's also been an uptick in the sexual assaults, and we think that's because of kind of what happened in the Catholic Church. And people were afraid to say things, and now they're being emboldened by what's going on, and so they're coming forward and talking about it. I mean, we've got a case right now in Pasco County where a youth minister was finally charged. The church is being sued because this kid was a boy was sexually assaulted several years back when he was a juvenile. The church did nothing about it, did not get rid of this guy, and allowed him to continue. So these are the things that we're starting to see.
So we'll go to Kevin real quick, but tomorrow there's a conference at your church at Generations.
Yep.
Now this is a kind of a reservation thing, so they couldn't just walk up and attend.
Oh no, they can walk up.
They can still walk up and attend.
We'll take them. Yeah, we'll take them all day.
At least introduce them to the process somehow.
Sure.
So that's
sure.
that's at Generations. Is that on your Facebook page?
It is.
But I'll get a graphic up there at some point during the show or by the end of the show.
But it's at Generations Christian Church, 1540 Little Road. We open the doors at around 6:30, 7. We're going to have breakfast and lunch. There is a charge. I mean, but you know what people have to understand when we say there's a charge? The reason why there's a charge is that Wendy and I, my wife and I, this is all us.
Yeah.
You know, we're working with other churches and we're getting funding through them, but that really takes care of those churches. So Wendy and I have to foot the bill on a lot of these things that are going on.
She told me yesterday on the phone she's hoping to break even, which I know that feeling with everything I do.
Yeah, we'd like to, we'd like to break even. That's the best part. But we also would like to see, some more contributors.
Support the ministry.
Yeah.
So the ministry doesn't. I know now running the Godlogic Project that it costs me money every month.
Sure.
So, I talked to Wendy about developing sponsorships and stuff because I'm going to have to go that route. Kevin, you're with Department of Homeland Security. What is the division again, or whatever it's called?
It's the Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiatives. And I'm one of the White House Faith and Opportunity Initiatives. It was established by President Trump in 2018. Folks will know that it started back in Bush 43, where he opened it up to the faith-based and community initiatives. That has been furthered, and the name is a little bit different than it was, but it was establishing for us to work with faith-based organizations that are doing good all over the United States. And this initiative helps us across all of the federal agencies to work with those faith-based organizations who have already engaged and find ways that government can work alongside to help support the good that they do every day.
Right. So how they pour into the neighborhood, the federal government now can and wants to help facilitate that either financially or with infrastructure or whatever. But we are particularly talking about church security. Do you find on a national level, I'm guessing in the last 3 months, it's probably become more and more of an issue, house of worship security nationally?
Yeah, and within the Department of Homeland Security, it's where we focus a lot, and we partner a lot with Department of Justice on these issues, obviously. And you'll know that across all the agencies that within the Department of Homeland Security, it includes the organization I spent a lot of time with FEMA, but also in our cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency, who focuses a lot on soft targets of those crowded places. Houses of worship definitely fall under that category. So we partner to work with houses of worship to bring an overall awareness. And, I've had the honor of working with Jim on a couple of occasions, and I've been able to look through some of his videos and the tools that he uses. And what I love about it is it about bringing awareness to this issue and helping houses of worship know that they can be active, they can be engaged with this. It's not as big as you think. It's not as big of, it's not like eating the elephant. You can start one bite at a time. There are some things you can start right now to do. Right. And that's Jim's approach, is really a way that is practical, that talks about it's not about the $500,000 security cameras or the state-of-the-art equipment. It's about starting with your congregation to know that they can be engaged and take action right now. And we have a lot of tools on our website that makes it available. That's the basic stuff to help to start. But when you have an opportunity like this to be a part of a training, and especially these videos that they've engaged with Laser Shot and putting this together, I just love that material because it helps people like me really make it practical on how we would use it in our house of worship.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're not just spinning your wheels up there, that the grassroots people like Jim are really applying the opportunities. And what we've done the last few years, Jim, is always share intelligence or information back and forth with each other and network through the church network. Right. And so that it would seem to me on a national level that would be even more important, that people follow trends, that they see on a micro level. We can see church hoppers from my church to your hop. We've already recognized people from each other's churches, but you can pick that pattern up nationally maybe, and then give us a week's notice, right? Rather than a couple hours notice of what to look for. Well,
and there's chatter. They talk about chatter. And a few years back, it was kind of funny. We got word from one of our church members, and it's during the Christmas time. And of course, what is Christmas time? Christmas is the most, Christmas and Easter is when they would really like to attack the churches. And we see it over like in Egypt during Christmas time and Easter time when they set off bombs and things like that. So we had gotten some information that there was a list of churches that they were looking at. And so we immediately put it out to our network, and all of a sudden we got like nasty calls. You shouldn't be sharing this. It's going to make churches paranoid. What are you doing putting this out? And it was like a week later, nothing against the government, but the government put out saying, hey, listen, we've heard some chatter that these churches have been listed as possible places of attacks. And so we were a little ahead, but it was like, at first we got kind of chastised on it. But we do a church safety networking, and we do it within a 2-hour radius of where we're at right now. And what we would like to do is when we go outside the state of Florida or outside that 2 hours is to get other churches to start doing the same thing. So we've been working on, you put these churches together because, as you said, we have church hoppers. We just recently had a situation of where a guy showed up and was getting gas money to go to West Virginia to work. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it the next day at another church. I'd gotten word from one church, talking to a friend of mine about it. And he goes, was this guy going to West Virginia? And I went, yeah. And he goes, he hit me too. Gave us I had a picture, showed it to him. He said, that's him. When we did our Pasco County Church Safety Networking, we found a church in Zephyr Hills that had been hit by the same guy. So, here's 3 churches in the Pasco area that have been hit by the same person. So we know they go from church to church.
Yeah, we've seen the pattern already. So.
Yeah. So, like I said, we share this information because we've had sexual offenders go from church to church. We've had stalkers go from church to church. So, this is information that we know of, and we're putting it out there.
And one of the things I want to add to that is, to Jim's point, people will react that way. When you get information, they will be scared. You know why they're scared? Is because they haven't done these type of things to be ready that when you get that type of information, what are you going to do?
Right.
How does that affect your planning in your church? And those that already have a committee formed, those that have already planned for what they do when they get that information, they're not scared. They're aware. Yeah. And all that does is become one more situation that allows them to be engaged in taking a proactive measure in securing that house of worship.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean arms. It doesn't mean all these other things. No. It just means a sense of awareness, and we all have a role to play of that in our houses of worship.
Yeah, well, we've always talked about the value of really information. So my approach around here has always been Secret Service rather than police department type of thing. So nobody really knows. We don't now people know, but they don't know. We don't wear uniforms or anything like that, and we watch, we observe. So we limit. And Jim taught me this. We limit time and opportunity based on just intelligence. Sometimes I know 3 hours before church starts that this guy might be coming and he's going to be upset and he wants his kids, or he's mad at the pastor or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then when he gets on campus, he steps out of his car, I already know. People already call me, telling me he's here. So this has been very valuable. Now we don't take him down, we don't shoot him in the parking lot. Right. But we know where he's sitting, we know where the other subject is sitting, how close they are together, which doors they're going to use, blah, blah, blah. So we're able to observe and safely get everybody, thank God, so far, everybody in and out of church in one piece.
Well, we practice exactly what we talk about, that this is the expansion of the kingdom of God. We want everybody to come in and feel like they can worship, but we run into situations where one of the spouses gets a protective order, an injunction against the other person. And, we have to have that information, because if they come to us and tell us this, we have to abide by the laws. I mean, we don't get to say, well, hey, so what? Your ex or your spouse can come in anyway. No, we have to kind of separate them and split them up to make sure that we protect everybody in this. So those are kind of like one of the things. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Kevin, because you said Secret Service, the thing that we really want is that if you wear security on your shirt and you've got a radio and you're stopping people and searching them when they're coming in the door, that's not a friendly place. And if I'm bringing kids in at that point in time and see that, I'm turning around and heading back the other way, because why do we have to be such a Fort Knox here, Fort Benning or whatever? But it's just, we want it to be a friendly place when we come in and do this.
And churches are in kind of a rough position in that we serve the broken, right? So we invite the broken. We want them to come. At the same time, we have to protect the people that are there. So you're in a very precarious situation. I can't just ban everybody. I can't kick everybody out. If I kick out every sinner, there's not going to be anybody left, including me.
So, I'm not going to be there.
I want to tell you the story because Jim gave away the secret to me a couple months ago when we were talking, and I had approached one of the churches, and I won't talk about all the details of it, but I went up to this church, and I said, this is one of the most loving places. I feel more welcome in this congregation than any church I've been to. I mean, they had some really cool techniques that when I walked up, I was engaged and loved upon when I walked up, and I just had this really good experience going in, and afterwards I sat and met with Jim, and he kind of stepped through exactly every step of that engagement that made me feel welcoming, and how that was used to help to make sure that they identified great people coming into worship, but they also were aware of those that may not have been coming.
Right.
But not at any step in that process of the things that he highlighted to me that they were using to help bring that sense of awareness, did I feel like it was something that deterred me from wanting to be there, because there must be something going on. And I really think that's a part of what Jim brings to the table. And when he speaks to the heart of the ministry. And I think that's so important today, because there's so many people that overreact and think of it totally differently and really Jim's approach. And I learned from that. I learned a lot with it. And actually now I'm very open to looking at that when I engage at a church. Those that make me feel the most welcome, I also feel the most secure. And that's a great experience.
And that's something that Jim does, not to blow your head up here, buddy, but that is something that Jim does in terms of staying scriptural, that I could learn a lesson from, because I can get cynical and stay there, you know.
Sure.
And you once you get locked in on a situation, it's hard to get unlocked from it. So the way you always bring it back to delivering the gospel message, even under those circumstances, or when you can, of course.
Sure.
That's always been. I've noticed that during our whole 3-year relationship, that there's always been that turn back where I can kind of stay a jerk. That's my nature.
Well, and I kind of want to talk about Kevin here for a second, because this is something that's important to us. You know, when we talk about the government being involved in this, a lot of times we get this person that's got a suit on and a coat and tie, and they're very kind of standoffish. Yeah, I know. And it's something, when I had an opportunity and met Kevin, it was like, he's a down-to-earth guy here. You know, we can talk to him about things. Where I have been at seminars and conferences, and Secret Service are speaking, or the Department of Homeland Security or the FBI are talking, and it's all like, we've got it under control. You know, we've got it. Here, let us give you this, you know, this 180-page book on how to set up a church, the safety team. And you see the guys sitting there going, I mean, their eyes are rolling up in the back of their head, because they don't realize that these are volunteers. Most of your safety team members are volunteers that have a full-time job, and they just want to make the church safe, but they don't want it as another occupation.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, teach me what to look for. Teach me where to go. You know, I'm a follower, you know, so I just want to learn. You have to have somebody that's kind of your lead person, but he may be the retired person that can take it on. You know, he may be in a position to where he has that time that he can, you know, develop the plans, the positions, all the things like that. But it's just one of these things where he was so down to earth about it and spoke about his Christian walk and where he came from and everything like that. And I was like, okay, we finally have a guy now that's listening to us. So I was really excited about it.
And so then you become, and you and I just met, but you become more of a brother than a bureaucrat. Where
Thank you. That's my goal.
Yeah. So we can be, so generally when I'm talking to my secular friends, I'm kind of talking to myself. They don't have the same worldview that I have, and so they can't relate to the things that would concern me that don't concern them particularly.
Yep.
And that would be, now since you're here, we'll be nice to the government, but that would be
I appreciate that.
just every aspect of the government I've ever run into until you.
Wow, great. Well, let me just share with you. A couple weeks ago, we had over 200 pastors, and we had to cut it off because we only had so much room. But we had over 200 pastors from multiple churches, I should say faith leaders from multiple faiths that had come in. And I was very proud of the diversity of our audience that we had brought in. And we talked to the issues of from security, from the big security, you know, the big word security, but also to our the issues of just securing your local house of worship for stuff that happens domestically, right in your community, but not just the stuff that comes from overseas or something we need to be worried about from over there. He talked about being prepared. And what I loved about that meeting of all of these houses of faith that came together, we were talking and sharing around some of the security issues, was the most effective thing we can do as worshipers, whether, you know, as we cross our religions and have different perspectives on how we believe and what we believe and when we worship, is that in America, You have the freedom to worship as you choose, and you should be safe in doing that.
Right.
You shouldn't have to worry about a threat to your congregation. I don't care what you believe. That's the beauty of America. So if I get to serve in government and help to bring those forces together to help houses of worship know that they have that freedom and can help them plan to know that they can worship safely, and then we can work across our faiths to help each other build a faith community that says, not in this community. You're not going to attack my Christian brother, my Jewish brother. You're not going to attack them because of something I know about you. I'm going to share that and help bring a sense of awareness. And I really love the fact that I can be in Washington. We're trying to work on more and more tools that make it easier for houses of worship to prepare, stuff like what Jim is doing. And there's some other resources that we have on our website that we can share as we go through this. But what I want to make sure that it's about the local community coming together. It's about working houses of worship, working with law enforcement, because you really those guys on the front line, they want that relationship with churches so that they know. They don't want you to be calling 911 to a foreign operator on the other end of the line. They want you to be working with the guy who works in that district every day, and you're calling Bob, the police officer. You're not calling just somebody you've never talked to before. And that's really the reason that this planning and the incorporation of this into partnering with your law enforcement, it really changes the dynamic of our community as a whole in being safe and secure and free to worship.
And I think that a different twist on it is that the secular world tends to think of Christians as a homogenous group, and we do it with Muslims and we do it with Jews. So we're not clear of that, but there is more dissension within. I mean, you look at the Sunni Shia arguments or conflict, and then you look at a fundamentalist compared to a Pentecostal or a Universalist, or so even within Christianity. I think the threats could come from other denominations almost, or other people are so adamant about their version or brand of Christianity being the proper one, and I admire that to some extent. I can see like right-wing fundamentalists coming against a Christian church that is not fundamental enough for them, or vice versa, that is not progressive enough for them.
We've had that happen. I mean, one of the churches that we reached out to, because we had a guy that walked in and said, y'all aren't preaching it right, and sometimes you have to hurt people to get your point across. No, wait, time out here. That's not Christianity. That doesn't have anything to do with it. And he says, sometimes just, until you do a big, like disturbance, you get your point across. And we were like, no. And I mean, it bothered us so much, we made a report on this guy with Pasco County. A couple of things real quick. One of the things that we also do when we go into these churches is make sure that they understand they have to get local law enforcement involved in it. You've heard me. You've heard me say it over and over and over again. In fact, I talk about your church, because you gave them a key and a coffee maker and a bathroom to where they could come in if they needed to and take a break. So to me, y'all were like, you're the example, when we talk about this. And it's the thing of it is they don't want to respond to a scene and have something that they've got to walk through and live through it for the rest of their life because nobody reached out to them. Nobody talked to them. I got 250 kids at our church. I got 3 different schools there. There's going to be some issues that we need to take a look at. So what do? I called Pasco County, and I said, hey, can you send a deputy over here? Because I just want to let him know what we got. Because with 250 kids, a call comes out of a disturbance at the church. You're thinking, what? 2 little old ladies that got mad at each other, hitting each other with purses. No, we've got a riot now, and so you should be aware of what we're doing here. And we're working with you because we're trying to get the information out.
Well, I had the sheriff's office come out and walk the campus with me.
Oh, we did
just so they knew the property well. And because of where I am in Pasco County, they're here anyway. They park out here and they sit out there and speed trap or watch for people they're expecting to drive by. So we're fortunate in that sense that we have the sheriffs here kind of a lot.
And I would also say they can give you insight. We as pastors, I'm a preacher's kid. I guess I should share that. But part of my background is working in small spaces. Oftentimes, it's never enough storage in our chapels, right, or in our facilities. So we tend to block a door or two if we have to or move the altar over for a play or something like that. And law enforcement and that partnership with them and inviting them in, they have an expertise in looking at those things differently than you do. You're worried about space. They're worried about ingress and egress. They're worried about, you probably shouldn't. I'm not worried about your fire right now, but I am worried about what happens if something happens. You need to get out of this facility for reasons other than that. And we have found actually in the post after incidents, we have found that there were some of the things that they could have done better, that they could have not blocked those doors or had some other thing that limited people's ability to leave those facilities.
Well, I want to go on the other side of that in law enforcement. If I have a door that I could probably go into because, the threat is over at the other end of the church, but I can't get into it because you've got all these, boxes and everything else stacked up against it. I mean, the shooting that happened, I don't remember what city. I want to say Philadelphia, I think it was, where the SWAT team went in, but the guy had the door barricaded, so they had to retreat because they could not get in there. I mean, like I said, if they're trying to make an entrance and the door's blocked, barricaded, got a crossbar on it or something like that, we can't get in and help you now. So,
what are the alternatives? And they may already know that if they've been there and been invited in beforehand. Agreed.
So it is a dynamic situation. For me, it's always been intelligence, been the driving force of that, and the networking. So the fact that you set up networking, Jim, has made a big difference. I think it's helped us already. Like almost, the first conference I went to at your the first presentation I saw of you. One of your subjects was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So the guy I knew. Yeah. So and not a well dude, right? So. It was a guy I knew for years. So then right away I'm thinking to myself, let me tell you, truthfully, I grabbed this tiger by the tail for the first year, and I couldn't wait. When I met Jim and started talking to Jim about his experience and his networking and his approach to security or to safety for the churches, it was 1,000-pound weight lifted off my head. And the idea that you're doing it and not knowing if you're doing it well, there's some liability to that too.
Sure,
so if you're not doing it, you're liable. If you're doing it and not doing it in a network or not doing it well, you're liable there too. The bad news is, and this is part of the conference tomorrow, the bad news is you're liable either way. So it is better to be out in front of it than to say we didn't know. That doesn't bring lives back, right?
Well, we're watching the situation that happened at the Tampa Mosque where one of their security guys shot and killed a guy in the parking lot who was unarmed. And the wife is now suing for wrongful death, and one of the things that she has brought up is the lack of training. There should have been a verbal de-escalation somewhere class in there, and all they did was they brought them in. They told them their, security for the church. They said they gave them tasers, which just scares me to death. And then they also said, hey, if you do have a concealed weapon permit, you can carry. So now we have this wrongful death, and the church is being sued. So guess what? If that goes through and, really puts the church at wrong, there's going to be other people that are going to be out here wanting to test this. Right. So this is something that we're watching very carefully because, as you said, you need to have some sort of training in here because if you don't and do it the wrong way, you got a guy that, is a cowboy. And
I've had that. We've talked about
him.
Yeah.
We've had them,
Well, and I want to say that I was recently with about 150 pastors in a city to talk just about this issue. And one of the pastors stood up, and I don't think he meant any harm by it, but he stood up and he said, there's a pastor here that we know in our community that has gone through the concept of having 10 guys that are going to carry every Sunday, and they're going to go in. They showed their tactics on how they're going to take out. They go into the basement. They all go in these review things. And he said, that's not right, is it? And I said, well, let me step back for a second. Before I tell you what's right and what's wrong, what's right for one congregation may not be the same for another. Sure. And what I would tell you is you need to engage your congregation, not just your crew, not just your 5 people that want to help make it secure. Right. You need to engage your congregation because you know what you're going to hear from that congregation? What's right for that church.
Right.
And that's the most important part is we want to be inviting. We don't want to make people feel like they should be scared to worship because of the guy who actually is carrying a gun who's supposed to keep me safe is the guy I'm most scared of. But you're going to do that. You're going to have that
Right.
integration with your congregation, that discussion ahead of time, instead of just shocking some new program on them. And that may be right for your church. And you may have a group of 10 law enforcement retired folks that are fully capable, have training and identify and know how to de-escalate, and they may carry. And that may be right for your congregation, but it may not be.
Right.
And that's what you need to be engaging in now, not waiting for a time of a
The time that it
disaster. I mean,
happens.
that
Yeah.
happened. That's right.
Yeah.
Something that I think we could be doing better here, Jim, is making everyone else aware of how we do it. Everybody that's not on the safety team, that they too can take continuous training, have situational awareness for anomalies, right? We can train them in some of the more baseline things. Not that they have to intervene in any way. They can leave that to me, but they can make me aware. And so then you have a lot more eyes. And again, you limit time and opportunity based on the amount of information you have when you go into a situation.
And we have a lot of churches that are afraid to bring it up.
Yeah.
You're talking about where
I was one of them. Yep.
Yeah, the safety team there. And see, I invite the people to come in because you want this culture of awareness. You want everybody to kind of be, you're talking about you went to a church and they made you feel so loved. Okay, well, that's the thing. That's one of the other things that we talk about. There's 3 types of people that come into your church. There are those that come to worship, and you recognize them as soon as they hit the door. It's not like a mystery. They're coming into worship. They're your members. They're new people. They're interested in what's going on. They ask the right questions. You have those that are hurting that show up at your door. And as Christians, aren't we supposed to be administering to these people?
Who we're here for? Yeah.
Isn't that who we're supposed to be?
Most important people in the room.
Yeah. And then we have those that are wolf in the sheep clothing. So if we train everybody, your ushers, your greeters, even your members, if they see something that just makes them feel uncomfortable, we don't look at them and go, hey, you mind your own business. We got this under. We take a look at it. You know, Kevin, I remember the first time that you came to one of my trainings, and you couldn't sit down.
Yeah.
And you kept standing up and you kept sitting down. You kept moving around. And I'm thinking to myself, what is it with this guy? And then you came up to me and told me about your back issues. Well, the other day, somebody came to me and said, hey, we got a guy down here that cannot sit still. He's just moving all over the place. And I went and watched him, and he was doing the same type of movements that you were doing.
Trying to not look weird.
Trying to do this stretch a little bit, and leaning forward and all these different things like that. So I looked at him and said, this guy's got a back issue. And they were like, oh, wow, you say that, But at least they brought it to our attention.
Yeah, we need to know that stuff.
Yeah, and we didn't, shoo them off like, hey, don't worry about it. We got, yeah, thank you very much for that. But we have to have everybody kind of aware that there's people out here. And look, let's make sure that we're perfectly clear on this. You're probably not going to have an active shooter at your church. You're probably not going to. As many churches we have across the country, the odds are you'll get struck by lightning first,
right.
But the thing of it is you're going to have disruptive attendees. You're going to have lost children. Are you prepared for that? A church loses its insurance because they lose a child. You don't go to church anymore. Yeah. You cannot let anybody inside this building anymore. Do you have it set up to where if a woman comes into your church and says, I have an injunction against my husband, he's not supposed to be within 500 feet of me, what are you going to do? Yep. Unfortunately, we had a guy of ours that threatened people. What are you going to do? This is a discussion that you have with the church. You bring in your expertise and say, or you call us and say, hey, what would you do? I had a church call me and said, hey, we had one of our, youth ministers, he sent a text message to a girl that said, hey, if you don't send me nude pictures of you, I'm going to tell your parents we've been having a relationship. Now, she's a juvenile.
Yeah.
And the church kind of said, should we let this guy go? Really? I said, well, do you have the text message? And she goes, no, but I kind of, the parents say they do and they're going to bring it in. I said, then he shouldn't be on campus.
Yeah. Even at least until you figure it out.
Send him home with pay. If you think that there might be a misunderstanding here, send him home with pay until you have the evidence. But I said, don't be sitting there letting him run, hey, we've got a retreat coming up this next week, and I can't wait to see all y'all there. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Yeah. That you can't do that. So, like I said, we get these calls. This is why we network. We don't care what denomination. After the Muslim shooting in New Zealand, I got a call from a mosque. And the guy says, well, you're a Christian, right? And I said, yeah. He said, do you have a problem coming in? I go, it's your house of worship.
That's right.
I don't want to see your children, your women, your men, hurt like what we just saw. So, we don't care.
And let me tell you, I learned so much from the shooting in Pittsburgh at the synagogue, and I learned so much from the Tree Light Synagogue. And I've had the opportunity of meeting some of their security team and the training that they had done just before the event. And I met the guy that did the training. And with all the things that were, just done so well, one of the most impressive things that I heard out of that story is how their faith community came together surrounding that church after the event and said, not in our city.
Right.
Yeah.
We are together because we all believe in the freedom for us to have different opinions, different theology.
Right.
And because of that, it united that community.
Sure.
And still to this day unites that community that this is not a place where we're going to tolerate that indifference or actually any activism from one faith to the other in here, because we believe that we all should be able to do this.
Right.
That was the most powerful thing that came out of the testimony I heard of what the things that they learned. And I just hope we all learn from that, because we can have our different opinions, but we should all agree in this country that you all have the right to worship as you choose to worship on the day of worship, that you choose to worship.
The manner.
And you absolutely have the right to do that in this country, and you should be safe in doing so.
And that's more poignant. I'm getting choked up listening to you. That's more poignant than ever, because we live in a political environment where we try to shut down the speech or the rights of other people in celebration of the rights of other people. So it's almost like we cannot coexist in that sense, that we can't disagree without calling each other names and coming to fisticuffs over disagreeing on some social or political matter.
Right.
And now more than ever, I'm amazed, and I'm pretty, I've always stayed on top of political situation, but I'm amazed right now at how we almost can't have the conversation anymore. And it's part of the Godlogic Project, and Tuesday, well, let me put myself on camera, I'll plug it. Wednesday, November 6th, 7 p.m., I'm going to have some friends of mine who are progressives. And it's just going to be two progressives and me, and we're going to have a conversation that hopefully my probably predominantly conservative viewers will listen to and understand. I want to get a logical response to some key issues that are going on right now from these guys. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or disagree with me. You have a place at this table. The problem is we're setting up separate tables, so we're in intellectual bubbles where it sounds perfectly normal to us until we speak to somebody who disagrees with us. Then we're shocked that they disagree, right? And this is the road that America's going down right now. So even the Green New Deal seemed like a good idea until you put it out in public.
Well,
to take a shot.
And I'll share with you from my perspective is I disagree. One of my closest friends in this world, we have vehemently different opinions on politics and other things. And probably the most productive time I have in our friendship is as we discuss those things and learn about each other's differences.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more space for not a lot more. There's absolute space, huge amount of space for us to be in those conversations, whether it's our religion, whether it's our politics, whether it's just, movies, social construct. We have so much space to have those conversations and be productive. And we can walk away with the same opinion. Yeah. We didn't hate each other for having a different opinion. And I just want to share with you something from the heart, because this really has bothered me a lot. And I don't think we see enough of us standing up as a house of believers and protecting from the vandalism and stuff that's going on right now. Yeah. And I had the opportunity to work with some folks in Louisiana and in Mississippi, and some of these this vandalism, the church fires that are going on. Yeah. As a community of believers, we need to stand up to that. We need to stand up to our congregations, and we need to talk to each other about that, because sometimes we know who those people are. We need to be willing to step up and say, that's my guy who's doing that stuff. That's a guy who believes some of the stuff I do. Yeah. I won't stand for that. So we need to come together as a community of believers, but we also need to talk about those within our congregations that may also be a contributor to this stuff.
Sure.
Because to your point, we can disagree, but we should know that we should be able to part from those and say, we agree to disagree on this issue.
Yeah,
but we can talk about it.
Something that surprised me since in the last year since I've been ordained is that I'm now that I'm a pastor and there's a title attached to it. I'm not Christian enough for some people, and I'm too Christian for other people. So there is no sweet spot really, because no matter who I'm dealing with, they're offended or put off somehow by what I think is truth and what I think isn't truth.
Then go to another church.
Yeah.
This is what I always tell people. There's so many different varieties of churches out here. You can find one that fits you. But I want to go back to something you were talking about, the vandalisms. If you come tomorrow to our conference, I have 45 minutes, and my talk is going to be the church's responsibility in the mass shooting epidemic.
Yeah, that's right.
Because our churches have turned a blind eye on this.
That's right.
And, when I take a study that came out by a person by the name of Peterson and Dinsley, and they took a look at all these different mass shootings from 1996 and looked at the commonalities, and they came up with 4 commonalities. And I'm not going to tell you what they are now. You got to come tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is a trailer.
I can't wait.
Yeah, So when you look at the 4 commonalities, the churches should be right in the middle of all of these, doing something in their part. And so, it's like you said, if we know something that is going on, we used to, you remember when Nancy Reagan said, just say no to drugs.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It did and it didn't. I mean, it did and it
didn't work for me.
It didn't work for you, but, you're a different animal. Anyway, it did for certain people. Well, to see something, say something that came out, it was kind of like, really? How benign is that? But really, that's exactly what it's all about. If you see something, I mean, that's
a slippery slope, though. If you say something about someone that isn't in your demographic, you're going to be ostracized.
But no, you make it anonymous.
Yeah,
you make it. Listen, we had El Paso, we had Dayton, we had these shootings, and then afterwards, because people started paying attention, we had 4 of them that were stopped. And it was because people were paying attention to the Facebook. They were paying attention to text messages and things like that. One was even a church. A guy was coming from Indianapolis going down to Memphis to shoot up a church and cut the throat of the pastor. I mean, but it's because people got involved. And if we are going to stand around we got to get involved. We as a church have got to start. Listen, if only thing you do is pay attention to the politics, because we're kind of talking about here, and vote for the person that you feel God leads you to vote for. That's the thing we run into. I'm not going to get into politics because they're all bad. God tells you to be involved in your government. God says, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. I mean, he tells you to be involved in this. And so when you have a politician that his agenda is to shut down a church because of his beliefs, you don't believe in what he believes in, so he wants to take away your status. What is going on here?
Yeah.
We're losing more and more of the church rights. So we have to become involved in our neighborhoods. We have to become involved in our government. We have to become involved in our country. And this isn't a political announcement. This is just a good Christian. We are ambassadors of Christ. If we're ambassadors of Christ, we don't sit at home and just say, hey, I'm an ambassador. Look at me. No, I'm out here. And we stand for the things that we believe for. We do it in love. We don't listen. We've said it. You and I've said it 1,000 times. If you go into a church looking for perfect people, you can't go.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. You're not. You're not. But we have to stand together, love on people, and try to do this change. And the churches, to me, have fallen apart. We've lost it some.
And you can be kind and compassionate, and I do it. I hope I do it. You can be kind and compassionate and still maintain the truth of the Scripture.
Sure.
And you're one of the hardest things I had to deal with when I've only been Christian 9 years. One of the hardest things I had to deal with early on was that maybe salvation isn't for everyone. So Luke tells us that narrow is the gate. So not everybody has to ascribe to what I believe. It's between them and God and the effect of the Holy Spirit on their lives, on God's time, not on Kevin's time, as important as I think I am.
Every time we get together, we go down that road. We start that, and I kind of want to keep us, back on this right here. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Because we just have to be involved, and being involved start when you teach, like we're talking about, the situational awareness. When we teach what we call the threat profiling of what to look for when somebody's coming toward your door, that helps on the outside also. Yeah. And like I said, you have to be paying attention. I tell people, young recruits when I go in and train, you need to find the woman that knows everything about your neighborhood. She's going to be called the most nosiest person ever, but when something goes down, she's got the skinny on it.
Yeah. My first guy was, I won't use his name, but he knew everything. And I could, who's that? And he would know the whole person's background story.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it just, like I said, I had one in my neighborhood. My house was broken into. I waited a couple of days after it kind of calmed down. I went over to her and I said, Mrs. Jones, have you heard any word? She goes, yeah, it's a kid that stole a car. Didn't know. I mean, she gave me everything.
I know one or two of those folks as well.
Yeah, and we think that they're busybodies, but they're just aware of what's going on,
Well, speaking of tomorrow's conference, although we weren't speaking of tomorrow's conference, that was a very hard segue.
That's right.
Into tomorrow's conference. Jim, I'm gonna put up everybody can see the flyer now from your Facebook. You want to explain who's on there?
Sure.
What's that all about right there?
Sure. We got Kevin. He's going to be talking about how, the government is working to help churches. There's money out there to help harden the soft targets, and he's going to be talking about that. We're really excited because we need to get that information out. There is help, I'm going to leave Julie last, but James Simmons, we were talking about liability. He's going to come in and talk to the church. Anybody that wants to come and listen to him about making sure that you have some sort of plan and some sort of plan that you kind of practice. Because if you don't, you're going to end up being sued by somebody.
Right.
And he's a liability attorney. Alan Wilcott's going to be coming in, and we don't have her picture, but Christine Fletcher is also going to be coming in from Pasco County to talk about signs that you can see in reference to children being abused. Mm-hmm. And this to me is so important because this is one of those 4 commonalities that we talk about that we need to start paying attention to. And where else can we pay attention to it but in a church when they're in our children's ministry? Jeremy Harding's going to come in. He's going to be talking about insurance for the churches, And one of the things that a lot of people aren't talking about, and it's right around the corner, and that is active shooter insurance.
Yeah.
Your general liability insurance is not going to cover an active shooter scenario because it doesn't end when it's over with and the police come back and tell you, okay, you can have your building again. It doesn't end there. You have to have care. You have to take care of everybody that was involved in it. You have to bring in, counselors and different things like that. Because we take a look at Parkland. We've had 2 suicides from Parkland. One person wasn't even there. It just affected them that much. Mm-hmm. But we see these things, and a lot of your insurance are kind of going, you know what? We cover you for fire, rain, storms and stuff like that. But active shooter, that kind of falls in a different scenario. It's like uninsured motorist insurance, Our insurance companies will say, well, you don't really need it. But then when it happens and you really needed it, you're kind of saying, well, why didn't I have this? Well, you were complaining about money, so we could save you a couple of $100 here. Well, guess what? You really needed it. So
and one of the things I just want to speak to, because you said it's not over. It's not over when the event happens. As a matter of fact, if it's an active shooter event or an event of that nature, it's actually over very quickly. And it's how you recover. Mm. It's how not only you recover, but it's how you help to lead the community into recovery. And I just there's a movie out there that I really think that folks should see. It's Emmanuel. It's about the Emmanuel 9 at the AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina.
Right.
It was very powerful for me. I would encourage pastors, leaders in the church to watch that video because it talks about how that church led the community through grace. And I won't give away the punchline, but if you've read about it, you may already know about it. That movie tells that story. And it had a tremendous impact on me for many reasons. That maybe we can go over that someday on, let's see, some movie review in the future. But I will share with you powerful movie about the story of how a church led the community in the middle of a crisis. And every pastor, church leader needs to understand that they will have the opportunity, and if they're not prepared for that, on how they're going to lead their congregation and their community afterwards. And I think that's a part of this planning.
Sure.
As they need to not only worry about the awareness of how to prevent it, but if something does happen, how are you going to lead your congregation through it, and who are you going to rely on in the community to help you get through that, especially as pastors come into other pastors and supporting each other.
Well, and one of the things that you're talking about, we talk about Celebrate Recovery. We're going to bring up Celebrate Recovery tomorrow, and we're going to let them have a couple of minutes to talk. But I want to go back to Julie Workman because it brings it right around to what you're talking about in this movie. Julie Workman is a survivor at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, where the madman walked in and killed 26 and injured 20. Her 2 sons were there that day. One of the sons was shot twice and is paralyzed from the hips down. He still leads music there. I mean, that's how strong their faith is. But it brought this community together. where we never heard of Sutherland Springs. Now it's us in this business, it's the one that we talk about, but we also realize how they have come back. It's grown stronger. They didn't lose their faith. One of the guys that I read about, he said, God did not allow this to happen. I mean, God didn't do this. He didn't do this. Satan came in that day and thought he had won. He didn't. God won. Right. So that's the power when you hear somebody that's been through one of these scenarios of where they are now, and they're stronger. Yeah. They're stronger. You cannot, you just can't rock them anymore. They've been through the worst of the worst. Now they're sitting here praising him, and their faith is just incredible. So
Julie's going to give her testimony tomorrow?
She's going to talk about what happened. She's going to talk about what happened that day. And she's then going to talk, give more of what has happened since, but she's going to talk about what happened that day. And it's just, she told me, I had an opportunity to listen to it. And like you said, you get goosebumps when she's talking about it. It's just unreal. God has put speakers in our conference that we've just never thought that we would ever have. Like we had Terry Howe, who was over in Kissimmee, the pastor that had a shootout with one of his employees. We had Ron Holland, who was at Wedgwood Baptist Church back in 1999. The same year that Columbine happened, what we don't realize is there was a church that had a mass shooting that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's Wedgwood Baptist Church. And it was through God that I met him, because I didn't put down an engagement that I was supposed to be at. And the guy called me like an hour before I was supposed to be there, all the way in St. Pete, and said, "Are you coming?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, yes, I'm on my way." And I met Ron Holland, who was at Wedgwood Baptist Church. So through somebody that Wendy knew, a friend of hers, she said, "Hey, I met this girl, Julie Workman," and she said, would you like to talk to her?" And I was like, "Julie Workman, kin to the workman that was shot, because he's been on YouTube and talked about it and things like that. Even the governor of Texas went to his hospital room and visited him, and so I was like, of course I want to talk to her. So we're really excited about it. So
the conference is tomorrow. If they need to reach out to anybody, it would be you, Jim, correct? So you'd be kind of our contact person.
It would be best to reach out to Wendy.
Or Trinity Security Allies. Period.
Yeah.
So this is their website. It's trinitysecurityallies.com. You could reach Jim or Wendy through there. I couldn't help but notice, Jim, there's no pictures of me in your whole website, bro.
I'm gonna have to change that.
Yeah, that's if you want to create a broader demographic.
Sure.
You want some of this.
Yeah.
You want some of this in there.
I thought we had. Wait, roll down a little bit.
No, I don't want to see myself in there.
No.
Then I become a liar.
Oh, because I have a card kind of like that one right there that has Godlogic on it. So Godlogic Project. So
Godlogic Project's in there.
I do post you. Yes,
we're like partners.
Yeah.
So trinitysecurityallies.com. If you have for any kind of contact to the church security community, if you haven't begun this process and you really want to get a one-on-one conversation with how to begin the process, that's the way to go. If there's anything, by the way, that I can do for you in terms of church security, addiction recovery, any way I can help you, or if you'd like to be a guest on the Godlogic Project. If you got a story to tell, let me know. godlogicproject@gmail.com. If there's a way I can help you, I have some resources here in the community that certainly, if I have those resources, I'll get them to you. And the main focus for me is always going to be chemical addiction. But if there's any way I can help, guys, we certainly will. That's kind of one of the reasons we're here every week, is to make a difference. If you have issues with church security, certainly Trinity Security Allies, and then
let me jump in real quick. If you click on resources right there, there's free resources to help you get started on the page there.
There.
Yep, there's free resources that you can do. So you don't even have to talk to us.
Yeah.
Download the free resources.
And then begin to get going. And then they can build these types of networks that we have here in Tampa Bay. They can build them anywhere. With a little tutelage, a little guidance.
Yep.
And that is, I would guess, the long-term goal, right?
Exactly.
So, and then, Kev, any parting words, anything you want to say to the folks before we sign off to kind of encapsulate or sum up our talk here today, where the federal government can play a role in any of this for local churches or houses of worship?
So I hate giving people 50 different websites, you know, but I really think that Jim, the Trinity Security Allies, is a great website. It's got great resources. But we also have some additional stuff if people are interested, and we cross multiple agencies of the federal government that may broaden a little bit, especially as you go beyond and build your team. I also want you to think about disaster preparedness and some of those tools. And let me just also link in our site. Now, it's real easy because I'm about faith, right? About working with people in faith. So let me just give it to you easy. It's FEMA.gov/faith. Got that? It's going to be, I mean, it's pretty easy, simple.
FEMA.gov/faith.
That's it.
And we're going to put it, we're going to get it on there.
Okay.
We're going to get it on there because we need to. The partnership that we're having right now, we need to get it out there and share it.
Right. And the I'll try to get it up. I'm going to put links to all of this in the description when we put a final product up on YouTube. I'll go back in and enter metadata and key tags, and I'll put all links for everything. So you'll be able to get this stuff, guys. You'll be able to get this by the end of the day today. All the links for everything we talked about will be available to you. That's pretty much it. We're going to wrap it up. We're about at an hour. Thank you guys for being here. I think this has been, I don't know how successful we were on Facebook or not, but next week will be different. By Wednesday, I'll be ready. Wednesday night.
So we'll come back next week.
Yeah, we'll just do it every week. Yeah. Well, Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, the Progressive Perspective via the Zoom app. They won't be here in the studio, but we're going to do it over the Wi-Fi. We're going to give, essentially, we're going to give the floor to guys that I may not agree with politically, but I want to hear what they have to say. I want them to make an intelligent conversation. Be part of that. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Godlogic Project. It's youtube.com/Godlogic Project. It's a little effort, big help to me. It really is. And if you could encourage folks to do the same, you ring the alert bell, you'll know every time we put up new content. You can get me at godlogicproject.com. And, of course, email me at godlogicproject@gmail.com. And if no one's told you they love you today, God loves you. So do I. Receive that. Be blessed. And we'll speak soon. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the Godlogic Project. And if no one's told you they love you today, God loves you. So do I. Receive that. Be blessed. We'll speak soon.
This has been a Rev Kev production. Your mileage may vary.
Shut up, Kevin.